Welcome back. Political rallies. It's the realization that our political parties never get out of campaign mode. And the Monday Night Forum is a way for Kamala Persad-Bissessar to at least show proof of life, if nothing else. It's also an excuse to never hold a press conference and actually answer questions. And it's also why these platform meetings are becoming really problematic on both sides. I'll get to the PNM in a bit. But really, rallies are just used to stir up your base and yell into the echo chamber.
He just can't seem to handle the pressure now. And I'm not making this as a joke. I really feel sorry for him. He just cannot seem to cope. I thought we had seen the worst of a madman's rant during the election campaign. Worst of a madman's rant during the campaign. I was not expecting this deranged ranting displayed last Thursday. And so at times you really have to wonder if this man is mentally sound. You really have to wonder.
And in today's overworked and underpaid newsrooms, the headline is just going to be Kamala questions Rowley's mental health, which is catchy, it grabs the eyeballs, and it's not incorrect because she said it, but it's going to be the story because it's easy. But, you know, how do you go about questioning someone's mental health when this is an actual train of thought that you had?
The thing is like he's living in La La Land. I promise in La La Land. Well, he has to be in La La Land. I think I'm now even wondering if this peacock story was true. Or is it a case of a wild peacock, you know, you say a wild goose chase? Was it a case of a wild peacock case?
Like you are obsessed with this man's peacock. Stop. Nobody cares. Now, there are a lot of things that were said that disturbed me at last week's Monday Night Forum. Among them,
Kamala Persad-Bissessar exposed the regurgitation that is taking place in the PNM under Rowley. In local parlance, the real truth of the situation is what we heard in this year's budget presentation, is that the PNM Rowley is lapping up their own political vomit.
oh my, oh, why? Like that is, what kind of sick? Anyway, there's also this disturbing statement by Rudal Munilal, but for another reason.
The only organization that's standing today between Keith Rowley and a complete dictatorship is the United National Congress. Be careful. This Rowley could be setting in train a political foundation to ban the United National Congress, to proscribe the organization, because you cannot make a comparison. So I'm not making a comparison between Rowley and Hitler, but it is noteworthy that when Hitler destroyed German assets, he blamed it on the communist movement.
And look, there really is no evidence to support this. And if we're being honest, the UNC is kind of doing a good job of its own destroying the UNC. I'm not sure how much help they need from the PNM. But I really do worry about comments on both sides stoking fears through baseless allegations, because we're going to start sounding like this guy.
We are on the road to success, but I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
Looking at the US now is like growing up and realizing your whole life is a lie. We've always looked up to them as this well-oiled machine with over 200 years of history, having it all figured out. But now it's like going to your father's funeral and realizing your cousin is really a half-sister from that time he had an affair. But, you know, this is the problem that we're having. The rules of engagement in politics used to make sense. Well, at least for a little while. You know, different parties, but we all had the same goals. It's as like Chris Rock said, all you need is peace and money. And we may have different ideas on how to get there, but as long as we get there. But now we've gotten to a place where people feel comfortable to distort the truth to the point where people will just believe you because, well, you represent my party, so I believe anything you say. And oh, don't think this is just the UNC doing it. Like I said, this is on both sides. The Prime Minister is doing the exact same thing when he makes insinuations about who might be behind the fire at the water pump.
Two big pumps, two or how many? Big pumps that pump the water out over the bank into the river across the way, so there's no flooding. Somebody went there the other night and burned out the pumps, burn up the electrical panels. And all you have to ask yourself, stands to benefit if bamboo number 1 is flooded? It has to be the people who make a speciality of flood politics.
And then ties that in to a random story about cutting plain wires without any context.
Had that aircraft gone up in the air, you know what would have been the consequences? Because there are people in this country who find that the normal dose of bad news is not enough.
And to this day, Minister Stuart Young has actively ignored requests for more information on that matter. And that's how we end up here. You see, information and like how we used to learn used to be linear. Your parents, your teachers, your leaders, and your elders tell you something, you don't question it, you memorize it, and you pass it on. But now information really comes from everywhere. And with that, there's a lot of misinformation. And many of our politicians and influencers are actually thriving on that. You know, maybe now we're in the new era of teaching and learning. And it needs to change. Because it's less about saying, well, this is true, memorize it, and repeat it. And what we need more of is, well, here's what we know, and here's how we know it, and here's the work that we put in to find out how we got here. And that's where we're trying to avoid the misinformation and the spreading of information. Take, for instance, the UN has a whole campaign on what not to share, or about thinking before you share things. There's a tweet floating around that said, we used to think a lack of access to information is what made people stupid. And now clearly we know that that's not it. It's being able to accurately interpret the information around you, at least for now. Hopefully all the political party meetings are done, but the budget is wrapping up in the Senate, in the upper house no less. And at least that's a place where the discourse is much higher and much more intelligent.
Another twist in the saga that is the drug susu. This time it's about influencing this country's last general election.
We understand from sources that came to us that before the general election, members of DSS were approached by these PNM politicians, according to our information, and given money so that they could buy votes from the people on election day.
Oh, Christmas. Curse you, parliamentary privilege. We've seen what misinformation has done to the US and many other developed nations that we used to look up to. And we absolutely cannot let that happen here. Let's take a break.